it feels like we are every year the medical marvels that we can pull off. Like we have miracles in sports medicine that every time I look up, it's like, how is this guy, running a 40-yard dash 6 months after he tore his ACL? And it
Yeah.
feels like there's a number of these injuries that 20, 30 years ago were potentially career-ending injuries, muscles, ligaments, bone breaks, that are now we don't really even worry too much about them, and a guy coming back, and the timeline for return is shrinking, it feels like, day by day. The Achilles feels kind of like the exception to that. Is there a reason why we haven't figured out the science of an Achilles repair? Why is that still something that can really, because a lot of guys still
Yeah.
do not come back the same after they tear their Achilles?
No, you're exactly. I thought Aaron Rodgers figured it out. Is that not right?
Well, that's TBD. That's TBD.
Right. Okay. So I do think that there's some pretty interesting studies that actually look at fantasy points of all things in both the NBA and the NFL, and so they actually looked at guys who tear their Achilles, and then did they make it back to prior level of play, or did they not? And so only a third made it back to prior level of point production.
Man.
A third retired, and then a third like made it back, but not to the same level of care. So I mean, like, that's a big deal. Like a third make it back. Like, and this is probably like a 10-year-old study at this point. So, I don't think a whole lot has changed in that realm, but you're right. It is a big injury. It's hard to come back from. Most of the time in football players or basketball players, it happens like in their early 30s. And so maybe they were kind of at the retirement kind of timeline, like they'd made their money. Stay in the league for 10 years is a big deal. And maybe they're kind of settling at that point. But yeah, you're right. Like, kind of pushing the limits of what you're able to do with an Achilles is a little tricky. And you look at Deshaun Watson, who, I don't know the exact details, but he retore his probably like in the 2 to 3 month range afterwards, which that's kind of the thing. Like, you can push it some, but there is a risk of re-tear either like at the same level or like above the level where you put your stitches. There's that kind of risk. I do think it's kind of a fun time in medicine because we are starting to push those boundaries. And a lot of those things are a little bit anecdotal about what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do. And so, particularly in football, I think it's pretty fun because the guys all use these accelerometers in their chest pads now. So they know how fast they accelerate forwards, backwards, side to side. So at least for like Tua, when he had his high ankle sprain, they're sort of the guys at Alabama, their sort of decision-making process and going back was, when could he accelerate forwards, backwards, side to side where he was before? And that timeline sped him up quite a bit to allow him to get back. And that sort of pushed a little bit of the thinking. So yeah, we're not there, but I think that there are some things that are sort of coming along that are allowing us to probably be a little bit more proactive in that.